home, tatsat. So it has been a week, and we're all living in a Kurt Vonnegut novel now, and we're all in our homes or briefly getting out. So I thought it would be helpful to do a brief video, series of videos talking about yoga for runners. My yoga studio, Sun and Moon, is posting content every day, and I thought I would share the best practices that I have for runners. So I have to start by saying thank you to Yogaville for teaching me everything that I know about yoga, and Sun and Moon for my certification and inspiring me along the way. And a lot of the practices that I do really came from Sun and Moon and Yogaville, so paying it forward, these are not my practices. So, but they have become things that I really rely on as a runner, and I don't think as runners we can commit to going to a weekly yoga class when we're training, but we can do practices and move towards practices that work for us and help us prevent injury, manage injury, feel better about our running, feel happier while running, enjoy the experience more, and identify, things that can be tweaked by turning up our feeling sense or our soma. And so these practices are meant to be learned and used, but you don't have to go to a class. You don't have to go somewhere. You just get into the habit of using them. So today I thought we would talk about sitting, and I thought we'd start to talk about our feet, because they are often neglected, and now is a really good time to pay more attention to our feet and learn some things that we can do to help and improve the running experience for us. So to start with, I thought we would grab maybe 4 pillows. I'm not going to be using any yoga props because I would assume that a lot of runners probably don't have yoga props hanging around their house. So 4 pillows, and it's important to get into a seated, comfortable position from wherever you're starting at. So if you have tight hips, tight adductors, tight IT band, different things happening in the body, kind of locked pelvis, things like that, then it can be difficult to sit. But using props, there are ways of getting comfortable and moving into a practice where you gradually start to take pillows away, and it becomes more natural and feel better to just sit for long periods of time. And I can tell you from multi-day yoga retreats that in the beginning, when I first started sitting for long hours, cross-leg style, like right now, in the beginning it was a little tight, it was a little tweaky and uncomfortable, and you get used to it. It actually does start feeling more comfortable, as opposed to sitting in a chair where I feel like it gradually becomes less comfortable. The back starts compressing, you start getting a little lazy and rounding, whereas finding a very comfortable seated position and working on this practice, you move towards comfort rather than having some issues that could result in back problems, alignment issues, all sorts of things. So 4 pillows. We're going to sit. We talk about the sits bones because you can kind of feel it if you move up and back. You can feel there's these 2 bones that kind of prop up your spine. And when you're sitting straight, it anchors you upwards, grounds you. So sit on a couple pillows. Try one and see how that feels. Kind of relax into that. And if you feel like you need a little bit more, just add another pillow. We're going to be doing some practices sitting, so you might want to get used to it, get comfortable. On one thigh, you may want to add a pillow. So under your thighs, you may want to add pillows. This actually feels really good. So even if you're comfortable, like I am, just kind of sitting Without support, you might want to try getting support and see how that feels. It actually feels a little bit better on my spine. So what I thought we would talk about today as well is working with our feet. So 26 bones in each foot, 206 bones in the body, about 112 ligaments. So there's a lot happening with our feet. Now I'm just going to do it from this position. If this is too uncomfortable, you can get chair, and that might take a little bit of the strain off. But let's start by putting one finger between each toe. So when I first started this practice, it was really hard, and over time it got a little bit more, little easier. So what you're trying to do is this, with your fingers moving between each toe. So you want to be able to just kind of clasp. And if you're not there yet, if you're not starting from a place where you can get a finger between each toe, then start wherever you're at and start to create a little space, and then over time it will get easier. But this is such an important practice for a runner. Do a little bit of rolls while we're here. So I find that, especially with really long miles, my toes start to tighten up, and the toe joints, they start to compress, and I have imbalances in the toes that there are a couple that get really tight and others that are okay, and you start to see all these changes. So it's really important for the health of our feet, and because we want to have healthy feet throughout our lives. We don't want to have walking problems and any kind of issues down the road. So for a longevity, well-being perspective, just to pay more attention to our feet is wise. So once we're here, we're just doing these gentle massages. And I've always felt that getting into that traverse between the pinky toe and the big toe, into this toe mound, this is where I tend to have a lot of problems after very long runs and races. Is it gets really pounded, and you feel like it really tightens, and it gets kind of fixed in one position. So when you start really getting in there and moving it and getting some fluids into that fascia, which can dry out if it's being taxed too much, we'll feel good. And as you do this more and more, you start to enjoy it and want to do it. Usually before bed is when I do this, but it's really important. Maybe some up and down here. It's important to really stretch the toes, and it also gets you in a practice of when you're running. Stretch out those toes, and you can feel alignment adjustments throughout the whole body. So that's one thing I think about sometimes, especially if I start to do this in my shoes. I start to tighten up. Is really spread the toes, and it's an immediate kind of burst of better form, I'd say, that it produces a chain reaction. So, and this has the added benefit of getting into the fascia. So just working with that and then switching sides. So, again, finger between each toe. And, while we're here, another interesting thing, while we're thinking about in between our toes, there's a book about the soma, this feeling sense, and how to sharpen the feeling sense. For runners, that's really important because we need to have a very strong mind-body connection. So the stronger that connection is, the better our performance will be, the better able we will be to anticipate problems and issues down the road, not only with injuries, but also with alignment, with weakness, with tightness, anything that might lead to an injury. So almost pre-injury, before we're even getting there. But that also has to do with enjoyment of running. And when we have great form we're at our peak performance, that's generally when we feel the best, right? And enjoy the sport the most. And I know that I have a lot of friends out there who are really passionate about running, as I am. And I want to find any way, not just of, killing my next race or doing great in training, but any way I can to enjoy the experience, because it is one of the greatest experience, if not the greatest experience that I know. So really getting in there. But this idea of soma, this book, and I will post it with the video, but this idea of soma, the book suggests trying to imagine a place in your body that you don't feel. So the suggestion is, do you feel the space between your big toe and your second toe, or any of your toes? Can you slow your thinking down and really focus in and think about that space? And if you can, more power to you. Maybe you have great body awareness. But if you can't, it becomes this wonderful meditation that you can sharpen that feeling, sense that you have of a place on your body that is disconnected from you right now. And for me, I didn't have great awareness of the space between my toes. So I often work on that as I'm falling asleep because it helps me sleep. And meditation, don't be afraid of meditation. I hear a lot of people who will say, meditation doesn't work for them. Again, up and back, round and round. Meditation doesn't work for them because they keep getting distracted and they keep having to come back to the meditation. And my response to that, or my thinking about that, is that they're great at meditation. They just don't know they are, because that's what meditation is. It's training your mind to come back. So if they were to say to me, well, I meditate for 10 minutes and I spend the whole time going through my grocery list, and then I forget why I'm sitting there 10 minutes later, and then my bell goes off and I'm done, then I'd say, okay, well, you need more meditation, work on that. If people say, I keep getting distracted, that's positive. That means you're doing it. You're training your mind to come back. We all have monkey brain. That's normal. That's natural. The mind wants to go in a million directions. And especially at times like this, we need to remind ourselves. It's important to be aware, know what's happening, inform yourself, reach out to people, but bring it inside, and internalize what the process is for you, and feel it. Feel your way through each step. Because there's so many wonderful things happening in our world right now, with people coming together and learning experiencing our own humanity together. And you can do that and feel that when you really draw inward. And that's where you'll find peace, and that's where you'll find love and compassion in light of everything that's happening. Don't lose sight of the importance of what is good that is happening, because we are all dealing with a lot of overwhelming things that are happening. So get in there and work with your feet and start to experience them. And next time we're going to talk about massaging our feet and breathing and some other things you can do to reconnect and find yoga during this time that hopefully you'll carry forward after. So, sending love and peace and compassion to everyone who is listening, and